Hello and welcome everybody to the Finding Your Voice platform, where we connect everybody from all over the world at a time of social distancing, self-isolation and global lockdowns. Today, my very special guest from the comfort of her home is Kim Knight. Now, a little bit of background about Kim. Kim was actually unable to work for 10 years due to chronic fatigue syndrome. She went on a very long journey to seek the answers and tried over 250 therapies. She sold a house in a desperate bid to enjoy one last trip to America before she was no longer able to travel. And it was on that trip that she found the answers that she was looking for, the missing piece to her puzzle, and it was unresolved emotional pain. After learning and applying techniques to clear old emotional energy out of her body, she healed herself from all of these conditions and went on to train professionally in multiple emotional clearing techniques. Since then, Kim has helped hundreds of people self-heal without medication or supplements from inexplicable chronic pain and fatigue syndromes. Kim is the founder of the Emotional Alchemy Academy, an organization dedicated to giving people the tools to master their health and well-being. Kim, it is so wonderful to see that you're sitting outside and getting some incredible vitamin D. I feel a little bit envious being in my room, but so lovely to have you on board. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, so we've got COVID right now and we've got lockdown. You're in New Zealand as well, just for anybody who's watching. How are you finding it? How is everything going for you?
Well, this is our 5th day, and I hope that echo is not too bad because I'm hearing an echo my side.
Yeah.
It's our 5th day, and you know, it's not the easiest of times. It's not convenient in so many ways. I live by myself and I spend a lot of time by myself, and I'm generally quite happy with that, as long as I get to choose if and when I want to go out. And as long as I do go out and have some social contact, which I always, do, it's at least something every day, almost every day. So this is challenging for me, even though I've done a massive amount of working through loneliness. And, in my house where I am here, the last couple of years, I really considered moving out because it's like, can I tolerate this level of isolation, working for myself from home and living at home by myself? And I sort of came through it, but this is bringing up stuff again, bringing up that isolation, loneliness factor thing. So, dipping in and out of, out a few hours of feeling okay, and then, an hour of, this is testing, and what do I need to do to, make myself feel better? And and we're just at the start, really, of we don't know how long it's going to be.
And I imagine that there'll be a considerable amount of people across the world who are in a similar situation to you, where they have a lot of that unresolved emotional pain that is just kind of bubbling up towards the surface. And we've just spent so long, because we've been so busy concentrating on other things in our life, that we've just pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down. And now when we've been made to go quiet and we are in our own company, especially for those of us who are doing it literally by ourselves in isolation, not having that social contact or physical contact, there's definitely something that is missing. We were just talking earlier about how it's all well and good communicating like this in this forum, but for those of us as humans, we do seek out physical touch. We do, despite, regardless of whatever it is that we might say, I don't need you, I don't want you to touch me, I don't need contact. It is actually one of our basic human needs, isn't it? To actually have somebody within close confines with us.
Well, I don't know about close confines with us. Sorry, I'm getting terrible feedback sometimes. It just seems to be when I start talking that it happens. Well, two things come to mind. One is the phrase that comes to mind for me is we're in a social experiment in a way. It's like you've taken a load of rats in a lab and put them in isolated cages to see how they cope compared to if they were, with their mates in a cage. And, that's going to be interesting to see what does happen. For me personally, I don't need, it's not so much the touch actually, it's more the fact of just even perceiving other people in my environment.
Mm.
So for example, I make sure I go to my health club 2 or 3 times a week, and I sit in the lounge there, the club lounge, and people are around, but I'm not really talking to them, but I may go and speak to the cafe attendant, just to order a drink. But I'm actually, just the feeling of having people around, and just familiar people just to say hello to, how are you, very briefly, is enough to satisfy my social needs.
Mm.
And some people will need more than that. So it's not the touch, it's the fact of literally physical people in your environment. And that's what we're not getting if we're isolated.
Mm. And especially, I guess, if you are living in a remote area where it's not like you're living in an apartment block, for example, where you may still be isolated, but you can hear people. Oh, tell you what, it looks amazing. Like if you are in an apartment block, you still can hear people.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
still see people on the street, for example. You can still hear people talking outside. If you are in a more remote or an isolated place, because that's just been where you've chosen to pre-COVID, it can actually really bring up those feelings of, am I the only one alive still in this world? Are there other people out there? How do I, all of a sudden you've got this void where you would normally have had it filled up by, even if it was just the noise of other people, like you said, like when you're sitting at the health club, there's still something there that goes, there are other people around. I'm okay. They're okay. We're all just functioning in, like you say, the social experiment. But now it's almost like you've been picked up and you've been put into, like the little rat that's been put into its own little separate cage, and it's like away from everybody. And what would the effects be on that little animal?
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. Every time I start talking, it's really weird. I get all this heavy feedback coming back. There's another two things that pop into my mind. I start off on one and then I usually forget what the second one is by the time I finish the first. But I think it's really important that people really think about, what do other people need. For example, I've just shown you where I live, but I live on 10 acres and my landlord lives in a house not too far away. And so I can go, that there is, if I need some help or whatever, then they're there. Got my phone making noises in the background. And they're all very, very well set up. They're a family unit, 2 children, 2 adults. And I think it, I don't think they really understand what it's like to be by oneself. And if it was me, if it was the other way around, I would be thinking, I wonder how that person is doing. Do I need to check on them? Do I, I think, and this is the thing about being more neighbourly, and there is that organisation here in New Zealand, Neighbourly, and I must, by the way, go onto the website and have a look. So for example, today I thought, I know that I need some more connection, because this is self-care. We need to meet our needs, and these we have these hierarchy of needs, and one of the needs is emotional needs. And so the physical needs, sure, and but emotional needs are just so important. And so we have to think, what do I need? And so today I set up a Zoom coffee morning club. And it's like, anybody can join, because especially for the people that are by themselves, we've got to have something to look forward to. And that was actually one of the things that I teach my clients, because I work with a lot with people who are chronically sick. And so they are actually, they have a lot of isolation because they can't go out. They're too sick. And usually they do live with other people, but still they have the isolation. And one of the things I learned a few years ago, which really is very useful, is we need 3 things, to fulfill 3 things every day. We need to, or in general, we could say we need something to do that we enjoy doing. We need someone or something to love, whether that's a person or a pet or even a plant or something. And we need to, what was the third thing? We need, and something to look forward to. And that is really important, is if we're sort of a bit bored or lonely during the day, but we think, okay, well, but I'm going to be talking to so-and-so at 7 o'clock this evening, that keeps us going, So we need those three things, and we need to make sure that we're fulfilling as much as we can those three things all the time in our life. And then on a daily basis also, we need to, there's 5 things that we need to try and be fulfilling on a daily basis. We need to be doing something creative. We need to be moving our body in some way. We need to, have variety. We need to be having some sort of a project, which might be, for some person might be their job, for somebody else it might be some other sort of project, and I can't remember the 5th one, but the point is that we need variety. We need variety to experience fulfillment. And if we don't have that, then our body is going to send us a lot of emotional feedback, such as boredom, loneliness, frustration, lack of fulfillment, and that is not healthy. And if we have too much of that, then that actually can lead to physical symptoms. So this is why we've got to be really in tune with how am I feeling at any given moment. Being able to tap into and label, just at a drop of a hat or the drop of a pin or whatever the expression is, what am I feeling right now, and what effect is that having on me, and is there anything that I need to do to shift my feelings to either clear the negative stuff or increase the positive stuff. We need to be very emotionally literate, but also emotionally adept, and that is a skill that most people have to learn.
Yeah, I really like it. Something to enjoy, something to love, and something to look forward to. I think we have a lot of fear and overwhelm and anxiety, everything surrounding COVID right now, because we really don't have anything to go on. We haven't done this before. It's not like, we're okay, yeah, this is going to last for this amount of time and everything's just going to go back to normal. It's going to be fantastic, la la la. But we can hope we have something to look forward to, and I think something that I found with my daughter is like, she was like, hey, so when this is all finished, Mum, and lockdown's over, then can we go here and here and here? So in her mind, she's already planning, as soon as she's released, she's out. She wants to go and rock climb or, go and do whatever. And it really made me think that as adults, we actually have to have exactly the same thing. If there's some people who have lost their jobs through this, what do they have to look forward to? And it's about reframing that, isn't it? It's about, I guess, being creative, like you mentioned, where you can kind of go, okay, well, right now I've lost my job and that feels really horrible, and I'm feeling like I'm going downhill here with my emotions and everything. But how can I be creative about that? I can be, well, I'm going to possibly experiment with something else. I'm going to go and learn a new skill, or I'm going to reinvent myself. And I guess playing with that is an idea as to how we could be creative.
Well, I think I was actually more creative from the point of view of, say, doing a puzzle or baking a cake. That was probably what I was meaning. Not that what you've said isn't valid either. And I've also just remembered the other one that was fun. We need to have some fun, and laughter, as we know, is very important, but we need to have fun.
Yeah. And so you have got a free mini training on your Emotional Alchemy Academy website, and that is on how to manage stress and fear, overwhelm, and anxiety. Would you like to perhaps tell our viewers a little bit more about what you're offering with that?
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of free stuff actually, and the one that I just created from some of the stuff is new, and some of it is taken from other programs that I already have. But I just thought, one of the things that is going on at the moment with this crisis is that a lot of people are in fear, and we could say fear, stress, overwhelm, anxiety, panic. It's all the same thing. It comes back to fear, and that is due to the uncertainty and the natural human animal instinct survival response that triggers inside a person, which ultimately is about fear of survival, fear of death. And so what we need to do is, it's so important to be able to dispel that fear and that stress as quickly as possible, and to take ourselves out of the stress response, which is the sympathetic response, medically speaking, and into the parasympathetic response, which is the relaxation, calm response. And the interesting thing is we can learn how to do that if we have the right techniques. And what we find is not only is that more beneficial because physically it's better for the body, mentally we feel better, we think clearer, emotionally we feel better. It's just beneficial all round. What happens is when we come into a more calm state, then whatever is happening is perceived differently. So even though nothing external changes, the situation is exactly the same, we feel able to cope with it. And there's what's called a collective field of consciousness, and whatever is happening for an individual collectively sort of builds up, a bit like if you were to put every individual into a pot, and 8 billion people in a pot, that's the collective, field of energy. And so whatever an individual is feeling is contributing to the collective field, and vice versa. Whatever is in the collective field is affecting individuals. So we need to do it for ourselves to calm, to bring ourselves back to calm. And we're wise if we and it's helping humanity if we do it as well, because we're helping the collective. And of course, a lot of people may not even realize that they're in shock and fear and stress, or they may, but they may not know how to deal with it. So this little mini training program, sorry, that was a long story getting there, but this little mini training program has got some really simple, quick, easy exercises to bring the mind out of the stress. And also one of the things that people do when they're in the fear and stress place is that they worry and they project into the future a negative outcome, which is, so worry is mentally rehearsing what we don't want to happen. And it's such a common mind habit. I also call it, or associated with it is what I call WCST, which is worst case scenario thinking, where it's actually a pattern of human consciousness associated with one of our core patterns, which is negativity and pessimism. So we really have to watch what our mind is doing and stop this, the worrying habit. And one of the ways to do that is to come back right now into the present, because usually we're okay in the present moment. But if we're in our head in this imaginary reality in the future, which is like this terrible outcome happening in our mind, and it's crazy, it feels real, and yet it's only in our mind. So it's a little program, people register, they log in and have access to these very easy exercises, and they can just choose what they want, because you don't need all of them. You just pick and choose, like going into a lolly shop, and just picking which ones you want.
Oh, wonderful. And we were talking earlier that you were bearing in mind that there may well be some people who are experiencing a sense of being lonely or loneliness, that you were looking to organize one of those ones to be uploaded soon.
What I'm going to do with that is I actually already have an overcome, I can't remember what it's called, but something like overcome loneliness program, because I've gone through a lot of loneliness in my life, and I really had to face it. And so I've got a program which I'll probably offer on special. I can't give that one away free, but I'll probably, I'm going to be reducing all my program pricing during this situation, but I haven't got around to doing it yet. It's a big job to go through, and I've got about 20 different programs. So what I'm going to do is there is one little video on the loneliness in the fear training program, and it's called From Fear to Calm, or Turn Fear into Calm is what that program is called. So I have uploaded a video on loneliness into it, but then within that program I'll put a link in on my site as well, like links to my other programs, and once I've uploaded the special pricing. And also what I'm going to do, I thought about it today, was I'm going to do a meditation on loneliness. So obviously not to create more loneliness, but to help dispel the loneliness. So I haven't done that yet, but that's on my to-do list.
Wow. Well, I think that you are doing so many wonderful things for so many people right now, and to be able to, one, offer, quite an important mini training for free is incredible, and I just encourage everybody to take them up on your offer. And as well, the essence and the energy behind reducing your prices so that more people at this point can actually tap into that has got to raise the energy and vibration of everybody. So from everybody, I just want to say thank you so much, because that's just going to help a lot of people alleviate stress while still being able to help themselves through your program. So that's really awesome. I really enjoy the sentiment that you've got there, as opposed to pushing your prices up like some people are possibly doing.
Well, like the supermarket's $10 for a cauliflower or something.
And I think that's been raised at the government level too. So let's hope that some of those prices come down. It's an essential item, having some vegetables. Like.
No, I mean, I'd just like to add one more thing, is that I've been a student of the esoteric sciences and spiritual, stuff, meditation, whatever word you want to put on it. And one of the things that, I've really started to learn in the last few years is that humanity has to change, and we need to, be more kind to each other, care more for each other, let go of the selfishness and the self-centeredness, which is what we call personality consciousness level, and we are actually moving towards what is called soul consciousness level, which is group. So in other words, it's moving from individual mentality to group mentality, and that is about caring for another person, whoever they are, as much as we care for either ourselves or, say, a family member. Because up until now, most people tend to think, okay, well, if it's a family member, that's important and I prioritize them, but anybody else is sort of lower on the ranks of, how I treat them. This has to change. And this is what is being asked of us to change right now. And in crises, people do tend to change how they behave. And I remember learning that when I was 17 in French class at school. And he gave us this example of the tube breaking down in London, and how everybody starts to behave differently when you're stuck in the tube and, in the underground, and you're stuck there for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, people who, back then, nobody talks to anybody, all of a sudden they start talking to each other. So, it's about breaking down the walls, breaking down the barriers, opening the heart, which is a big part of it, and literally transcending ourselves beyond how we've been as individuals and collectively. It's a major, major, major wake-up call that we're going through right now as humanity.
And just with you mentioning that, I mean, it's been something on my mind, where in the back of my mind, I've had it takes a while for any habit change to take place. If this doesn't last for long enough, we're not going to change anything, but then at the same
That's
time,
absolutely true.
At the same time, I'm going, I don't want it to last long, but it has to last long enough, because otherwise we're not going to come out of this any different, and we're not going to have lasting change.
And what's so interesting is that I can see that we could probably talk for 3 days. Is that what I see happening for humanity collectively is what I've seen happening with my clients individually for the last 15 years. People who get to this chronic place of sickness because they haven't been respecting and looking after themselves without even knowing it. But the pain gets so bad that they have to change. So I always say there's 3 steps to the change. First of all, there is the awareness that there is a problem that needs to be addressed, which is a big step, right? Because a lot of people still don't see that there's a problem. They just think, oh, we're just sick, And then the second step is, actually we could step it down to more, but just to make it simple, the second step is learning what we have to change, which requires new skills and new strategies. And then the third step is actually applying that change. And that is what, when I teach people how to heal themselves, that's all they do. And that is why they get a result, because they're making the necessary changes which the body has been asking them to make through the pain. Now we're getting this on a collective level like we never imagined or could have, preconceived happening. But that's how change happens, right? It comes from the side. Like, what do they call? They side swipers.
Sideswiping, yeah.
That's how it happens. Otherwise it wouldn't happen, because one of the things that we love to do as humans is to resist change.
Exactly. Number one survival, I heard once.
Pardon?
As I had contact with somebody who was in the New Zealand SAS, the secret air service, and he came into where I was working one time, and he was like, "What is the body's number one survival mechanism?" And I was like, air, like eat, food, water, what? And he was like, it's resistance to change, because as soon as you have change, your entire body doesn't know what to do with it. And we've got that reptilian part of our brain that goes, just keep everything the same. Don't change anything. Yeah.
Interesting.
Just keep going along the track you're on. It's okay. We've got you. Don't change. And it always kind of stood out in my mind.
Yeah.
That was it's nice, because change is inevitable. It's always going to happen. But when my belief is that if it's being forced upon us, then it's absolutely essential. And all I'm asking for everybody that I touch and reach is that make it long lasting. Let's come out of this in a better place than what we were when we went into it. Let's make sure that we don't drop the ball on all these new things that we've been thinking and just revert back to how we were.
Well,
because
this is,
who knows what's going to happen.
This is quantum shift, this is quantum shift stuff. And the good news is, because macrocosm, microcosm, if you look at somebody changing, personally, just one person, when they make enough of the change is permanent. It can't go back. And one of the things my teacher used to say was, healing is transformation, and you're never the same again. And that is what healing is. Healing isn't just getting rid of symptoms. It's actually a transformation, just like chrysalis turning into a butterfly. The butterfly can't go back to the chrysalis. So this is what is being asked of us. And if we don't do it this time, then we will get another crisis, and it will happen one way or another, sooner or later. It will happen, because it has to happen. It's part of evolution.
And we don't want it to come back any worse than what we've already got. So let's just learn, everybody. Do what you've got to do. Now, if anybody does want to get hold of Kim Knight, because she's an incredibly inspirational spiritual person who I could honestly keep talking with, but for the sake of everybody watching, you can reach Kim on www.emotionalalchemyacademy.com, or on your Facebook page, which is at Kim Knight with a K. Art of Health, all one word. Kim, thank you so much for stepping outside into the sunshine. I hope that this has brought a little bit of joy and light to your day. Really, really appreciate you with all the knowledge and the insights that you've shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.